Ian, what does adolescence mean?
Adolescence?
Yeah.
It's being a teenager. Like a teenager.
I group students because the collaboration piece is key to unlocking some of the Florida standards. And when they're grouped based on data, they are able to learn things from their peers that they might not be able to get from me in my instruction when I'm trying to deliver a lesson. My groups are never larger than 4 students. Typically, if I have students with very high needs, they're low performing students, I will not place them in a group larger than 3, because then that leaves space for me to be able to sit down with them on their level and provide them that assistance that they need in an unobtrusive and unintimidating way. When determining the groups for my students and how they're going to work collaboratively, I like to look at any data, which would be baseline data. Always at the beginning of the year, I administer a baseline assessment that is tied to the standards for that semester, for the scope and sequence that the district gives us, so that I can determine where they stand. Are they below expectations, meeting expectations, are they exceeding? So I can determine their needs in order to help them achieve success. From there, I also take into consideration any students that have IEPs. When working in collaborative groups, students are responsible for their own task. So there might be something like a graphic organizer or a written piece that they have to submit at the end of class. So every student is accountable for the work that they're doing within the group. It is not a collaboration to complete one unified project between the students, but rather it's to help the students understand the complexity of the material while they're completing an individual task. It's typically within the unit when they are grappling with complex tasks for the first time. So when they are trying to wrap their mind around the task and the complexity of the material and what they're being asked to do, they usually interact with their peers before they have to do that independently. In order to maintain the focus within the groups and the control of the classroom, you have to monitor for on-task behavior. And when a student is off task or a group is off task, it's always key to address it as soon as it happens. But your addressing it can become just as disruptive as the behavior if you don't already have a system in place. And I like to utilize nonverbal cues so that the students can see that they're off task, and it can redirect them in an unobtrusive and non-disruptive way to the rest of the classroom. Some strategies I use to monitor my students when they're working collaboratively within groups is to check in with them and ask key questions that require them to actually think about what they're doing. Typically, when I'm doing my first walkthrough throughout the classroom, I ask them to explain the task back to me as they think it should be accomplished and what they think their goals are for that session with their peers. And from there, my questions just help determine where are they within the task. Are they actually on track? You have to multitask when you are monitoring, because you have to be able to have a mini conference with one student at a table within their group, but also still be able to monitor for on-task behaviors with your other students, and just always listen for key phrases and on-task behavior. When I release students into their collaborative groups, my role as the teacher shifts from direct instruction to facilitator of the learning process, and really coaching them and help guide them towards their own discoveries. I monitor my groups for both on-task behaviors and comprehension of the task that they've been given. So what I have to do as a facilitator is constantly move and rotate within the groups and throughout the classroom. I am moving the entire class period while they are collaborating and ensuring that I am touching base with each group at different intervals to ensure that they are on task, they are behaving appropriately, and they are actually understanding the assignment.
So today's learning goal is that you will be able to identify Romeo and Juliet's specific behaviors that illustrate related claims from this pamphlet. So you should have already read through the pamphlet, but today we're going to, I'm going to give you some time, about, we'll say 10 minutes independently to identify the main claims, because yesterday you just got to see a brief overview of the article. You didn't really get to dive into it. Today, what I want you to do with this is identify by underlining or highlighting some of the main claims that the authors make, so that when we're looking at the graphic organizer that I just gave you and when we're working within our groups, you're able to quickly reference the main claims because you've already identified them.